Good morning and welcome to another episode of Business Beat with me, Odette. Today we'll be talking about the business of branding, but not in the traditional sense. My guest is Klatzko, who is somewhat of an entrepreneur, an author, a brand builder, but most importantly, she knows the business of advertising and branding, having been at the helm of large ad agencies for a big part of her career. Good morning, Dawn, and welcome to Business Beat.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
I hold my book dear, The Art of the Suit, right? It's a fresh guide to business success and personal growth. Talk to us about the role of branding and personal branding in terms of your definition of what is success in the branding space.
So I think the whole concept of the art of the suit is, as you well know, in the advertising world, you have the creatives and you have the suits. And a realization in my career was that as a suit, you have a very important role to play in terms of how you surround the creative thinking. How do you surround creativity? What are the tools that you use to protect that and ensure success?
And usually those two worlds don't come together, right? Creativity is operating in one silo, and the suits or the client-facing people or the number-crunching people are in a completely different space.
Correct. And what isn't appreciated as well is the human factor. Mm-hmm. So at the center of any creativity, of any thinking, is obviously the individual. And for me, I think that is where the realization that building the personal brand, which was really something that used to be the domain of the rich and famous exclusively, but even more so today, is becoming essential in your success. So you need that combination of the two.
How do you go about building a personal brand? I know that most people think a personal brand is having your name in lights or being an influencer who can attract brands to earn an income. But what exactly is a personal brand in the space of entrepreneurship?
It's a great question, Odette. I think there's a lot of conversations, there are many conversations happening around, for example, authenticity. And if you look at the work environment that we're in now, this huge dynamic change that has taken place,
yes.
I think personal brand is about being true to yourself because the competition's greater, it's more challenging. There are a lot of people having to reinvent themselves right now on the run. So they're trying to repurpose, trying to find a new space. Not always the most glamorous entrepreneurial, I've got a dream and I'm going to build up this business, but sometimes at a more functional level. So how do you pitch yourself? They're the same principles that brand builders would employ, but you need to apply it to yourself as an individual. So what is it about you? And it's not only the intrinsics, it's not only your academic qualifications or your work history. More and more talent managers and recruiters are now looking at individual soft skills. What is it about your personality? What are your hobbies? You know, are you a secret pole dancer? And how does that translate into being a great leader? So there are interesting dimensions, and personal brand is now the domain of whoever's out there trying to build a career or a business or a future.
Still in the space of entrepreneurship, in your experience as a really seasoned business coach and somebody who's led companies from advertising agencies to media powerhouses, what are the telltale things or the few things that are in common from an entrepreneurship perspective where people actually fall down, fall over, and make mistakes when starting up a business? What are the mistakes that startups make?
It's so interesting. So I think a couple of them, and that was why I wrote The Art of the Suit, because there's the business of business. It's not a perfect science. And I think we sometimes go down rabbit holes of pursuing ideas. So for example, a popular concept is one of whether or not you have passion for what you do, for the company you work for. People seem to think that there's this magic ingredient of passion. But from my experience and from a lot of my own failures, passion can get you into a lot of trouble. Think of what happened to Romeo and Juliet. It wasn't a very happy ending. So my advice, for example, is yes, it's good to see passion in somebody starting out or aiming for a position, but you need to learn when to put on the pause button and take a cold, hard look at what the opportunity is. So following on from that, once you're absolutely certain, great, add the passion in. You need passion to get you through the midnight stretches, to bounce back from adversity. But then there are other fundamentals. For example, the phrase of married to the job. Absolutely, it takes complete commitment. But the reality is it's a marriage of inconvenience. Because just when you want to go on that holiday or have a celebration, the greatest opportunity sticks its head up and you have to pursue that. So are you ready to make those sacrifices? Have you negotiated that with your family, your friends? And then I think another typical one, for example, is I say you have to love numbers. I can't tell you how often I've engaged with entrepreneurs or people sitting out on a business and they go, no, I'm the visionary. I've got the big idea. Don't bog me down with admin and numbers. If you don't love numbers and it's not a natural aptitude, my advice is learn them as quickly as you can.
Certainly.
And I suffered from that myself. I came from big agency groups to when I started my own ad agency, and I was used to having this massive financial team supporting me, as well as a very healthy piggy bank. And I had to learn at high speed that never mind the love of my own company, best I learn how to love the numbers.
And your own money.
And your own money.
Everybody wants to be the boss, but nobody really wants to be the boss. Because you have to know, what I've come to learn is every aspect of the business. You need to know the experience that your clients will have at every single touch point because it affects the brand ultimately. One of the biggest touch points that companies have is talent. So in my career, I've seen somebody who is a really good art director or a really good account manager suddenly being catapulted into a managerial position because they're good at their job or their craft, but they are not a good manager. They're not a good boss. How do you mitigate against that in an entrepreneurial space?
So it's very often a shortfall in organizations. In fact, they take their rising stars and they promote them into failure. So it comes down to, and I think that's where coaches, and not just promoting myself, but where they help the transition. There's a huge leap, and you're absolutely right. And I think very often it can be demotivating because what got you here won't get you there. What made you stand out at a particular level, you're going to have to leave a lot of that shine and those attributes behind as you step further and further up the ladder. And the further up you go, the lonelier it is, the less charted the grounds, and the more you're required to reach down and help pull somebody else up. So it takes learning, it takes an open mindset, and it takes a lot of self-sacrifice. You have to be prepared to step away from a lot of the limelight, a lot of the glamour, and realize as part of what they refer to as servant leadership.
Yes.
So to be a really great transformational leader and to take a group of people along on a journey with you, you have to be prepared to put your own ego and your own profile aside to some degree and take a different approach, a different perspective of the talent that you now need to incubate.
I'm a huge advocate of servant leadership. I believe that you should never ask somebody to do something that you yourself are not prepared to do, and as a business leader that you aren't able to do. Because if you aren't able to do it, you're not able to quality control check it, QC it. You're not able to make sure that it's delivering to the standard that it should be in order to give your customers the best experience to get them coming back. Balanced scorecard, business management 101. If you have the right people doing the right things in terms of systems and processes, you have happy customers. And happy customers are paying customers. On that note, there you have it. A little bit of a snapshot of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. It's not all glitz and glam. Trust me, I know. It's heavy lifting a lot of the time. Everybody wants to have their own business. Everybody wants to run their own business. But does everybody have what it takes beyond just passion to be your own boss? Stay tuned. We'll be talking to somebody else next week who'll help you navigate the business of business.